Oh boy, this latest move by Donald Trump is absolutely putting a lot of left-wing liberal Democrats in quite a pickle, to say the least.
First Black, queer, non-binary, indigenous, plus-size, non-abled, one-spirit diversity officer.
Miigwech.
What did you just say? As that person might be federally disarmed because of their, quote, woke virtue signal. What in the world's going on here? Of course, we warned you about a very specific executive action, which looks like now is being tested to see if it could actually pass through this Trump administration that is proposing a ban of firearm ownership for a specific leftist group of woke individuals. Now, will this work? Is this constitutional? There's actually a lot of things that have been happening, specifically within Trump's own kind of political career, that do highlight how we are actually kind of moving forward this type of restrictive measure, as some people are saying, well, if it's going to be this one protected leftist liberal group, why don't we look at the racial demographics here, which we will as well, as we are going to make arguments for this very controversial proposed Trump DOJ Second Amendment restriction policies. And then, of course, we're going to be making arguments against it. There's a lot of people involved in this specific argument. There's a lot of people that are very heavily emotionally invested in this. And there's a lot of different takes here. As you can see, who is more constitutionally minded and who is just willing to do whatever the Trump administration wants them to do here. Of course, we're going to be doing our best to try to have as honest of a conversation as we can here, as truly the left is put in a weird kind of conundrum. If you appreciate these type of videos, subscribe, click the notification button. We greatly appreciate all the time you spend with us. As now, individuals like Gavin Newsom and other leftist liberals who are for banning guns have to sit there and be like, we could ban some guns for some people, but it's the people that are a part of our kind of political identity. Those people are, of course, the trans-identified people. As Tim Pool responded to this by saying, oh-ish, DOJ considering banning trans people from having guns. This says the Daily Wire is reporting that the DOJ is deliberating this. Now, them proposing this, there are individuals within the Daily Wire that see this as a great thing, and we'll make the argument for and against it in just a little bit. But there's a reason they just didn't do it. There's a reason why we're having this argument now in the court of public opinion and why your voice matters now more than ever, because the administration is saying, what's the base going to respond to here? Because we are restricting the Second Amendment. We are restricting and following along procedures that a lot of the other kind of leftist, liberal, Democrat politicians previously did beforehand, and just slowly and surely limiting the scope of the Second Amendment, as a lot of people are saying that this is very similar to red flag laws. And it is, and Pam Bondi has a long, extensive history setting those up here in the great, beautiful state of Florida. One of the few drawbacks of Florida is that it is constitutional concealed carry, but that's an oxymoron within itself, though, by the way. But there are red flag laws here. We'll get into those in a little bit here, as the DOJ now is looking at a, quote, range of options to prevent mentally unstable individuals from committing acts of violence. Now, mentally unstable, some people would say, is a staple of people who have been given SSRIs, who have been given hormones, especially when they're young and developing and their brains don't develop right because they're just being inoculated with doctors who, in some instances, have been very predatory and have been financially incentivized to try to change the biology of children that are still developing. I think the whole thing, in my own personal opinion, is immoral and wrong. Now, some people would argue, well, maybe the responsibility should be on some of these doctors. If a doctor has a child that comes to them, and in many states, they don't even need parents' permission to do this. If a child goes to them and he's like, oh, I want to be a dinosaur, then I want to be a boy. If they're a girl, and then he shoots them up with a bunch of testosterone, that leads to a lot of instability. If that person does something unstable, if that person acts on their instability and hurts other people, some people are making the argument, maybe the doctor should be held responsible here. But I think there's a better off solution towards all of this. Now, all of this is actually happening after a trans-identified individual decided to shoot up a Catholic school in, I believe, Minneapolis. Now, as soon as this happened, we're like, all right, guys, be careful, because I already see the kind of language from a lot of paid-off right-wing influencers, and there's some that are just there to cheerlead and puppeteer and push, saying, hey, we got to ban all of these people from owning firearms. Now, the argument becomes a little bit nuanced, because do you ban people for the actions of others because they're in the same kind of group and identity? I would say no, but there is a nuanced discussion to be had here, since there are a lot of incidences now that are correlated, that are not coincidental, that do deserve to be talked about. And I believe that the solution to this is a lot different and a lot more practical. And I'll tell you my solution in a little bit. Before I do that, I wanted to tell you about wearechange.shop, and one of our best-selling supplements is our fish oil. I really like this fish oil. My doctor said I should take some after I did some blood test results. And listen, I feel great. I really like fish. I come from a Slavic, Nordic type of country and genetic background, and my people thrive off of omega-3s. As some people report, and some research is suggesting that people with higher blood levels of omega-3s boost, quote, healthy aging, as there were many studies specifically with EPA, DPA, higher levels had an 18% lower risk of unhealthy aging, as a lot of people usually get their omega-3s through salmon or other fish. I'm a little bit worried about that personally, as the best way to really get them is through sardines, because they're with small fish. Our fish oils are from small fish and sardines. But a lot of the sardines, they're literally filled with like seed oil sometimes. Or they're in these like metal tins that are filled with microplastics. And I'm like, I don't want a microplastic seed oil filled sardine. I just want a normal sardine. If you could find, and they're pretty expensive, the olive oil, not multi-sourced olive oil, one sourced olive oil in glass, sardines, that's a great way to get omega-3s. And I do that too, but I just don't like the pain and hassle. I'd rather just take the omega-3 fish oils, EPA, DHA pills that I have on my shop, because it's just easier and more convenient. And I know I'm getting a right product that's not contaminated with mercury, microplastics, seed oils, and all this other nonsense that heavy metals and toxins, like a lot of the fish and fish supply is dealing with now. A lot of people have reported by taking omega-3 fatty acids that they had lower blood pressure, decreased risk of heart disease, enhanced brain function, reduced anxiety, depression, reduced risk of arthritis, asthma, support for eye health, improved skin hydration, elasticity, reduced acne, protects against sun damage and premature aging, improves bone health, improves metabolism, and supports fat loss, reducing risk of permanent death, according to Dr. Dennis Walker on Twitter. That's what he said. Do your own research before putting anything into your own body. wearechange.shop. Get started now on your own independent health journey. Now, let's get back to this specific discussion here. As Donald Trump Jr. a couple days ago said, it's almost like guns aren't the problem. Oh, and Madison, Wisconsin shooter last year was also a trans-identified individual. Now, people are saying we need some serious legislations. It's not the firearms that are the problems. As soon as this happened, as soon as any of these incidents happened, the left comes out, we got to ban all firearms. I think that's a ridiculous argument. That's like saying there was a car accident, someone drove drunk. You can't drive your car now. Not allowed. Listen, there's an escalatory path toward this that I think we really need to be careful, because we're walking down the pathway that is pretty dangerous. Andrew Wilson was just on the Piers Morgan show. He was retweeted by Elon Musk, and he kind of highlighted this kind of right-wing concern and issue in a very concise way here in this particular video.
People are done with the trans thing. They've had enough of it. This whole, they're just kind of regular people like you and me, but happen to dress up like with. No, that's not really what's going on. You've unleashed an entire fleet of mentally ill lunatics on the public, and now we have to deal with the fallout of it. We have to deal with having to deal with these people on a day-to-day basis. A lot of people are sick of it. This guy is just echoing the thing which is in a lot of our minds, which is that, hey, we're kind of tired of these mentally ill lunatics on our streets. We really are.
Ava?
I find that really frightening. I mean, why would you say someone was mentally ill because they feel they were born in the wrong body? I mean, does that give you pleasure or joy to just stamp down on someone's, personhood? What's the intent here?
Do you value truth?
Because of course I value truth, yeah.
Good. Then here's what's true. What's true is that if you're a man, you can't be a woman. And if you're a woman, you can't be a man. That's what's true.
I don't think it's helpful to get into
Hang on. I'll let you talk, but let me finish. Your attempt to gaslight everybody into the opposition of this truth builds resentment. And it's that resentment that you have to deal with. And it's you have done it to yourself. Like most of these things, the left does it to themselves. It's very obvious. People are not going to accept this. The trans agenda has stalled, and it stalled out the LGBTQ agenda with it because you're trying to gaslight people into something which is obviously not true.
Well, I would have to agree with Andrew Rulson there, and I would say that definitely is a big cultural backlash, especially now with all the USAID money gone, especially now with a lot of the kind of major cultural institutions being backed on when they were promoting a lot of this kind of weird, crazy ideology, and we're literally handing out S hormones to small children like it was candy. In a totally unregulated, unsupervised, insane way with no liability at all, which I find extremely criminal, as some of these institutions were bankrolling and making a tremendous amount of money off of hooking kids up to these hormones and making them customers for their entire lives here. Now, after that incident in Minneapolis, a lot of right-wing guys are like, oh yeah, red flag laws. And I'm like, I don't like red flag laws. Brian Kravstein, who, again, I disagree with on vast majority of his political takes here, says they're weighing a plan to do this, saying, quote, so much for the Second Amendment absolutists. They're now cheering on an effort to strip away one of the most vulnerable groups. They were one of the most protected groups, by the way. You couldn't say anything against them. You couldn't criticize them. You did. You got canceled. You got demonetized. You got downranked. You had your videos deleted. I disagree with this statement. In America, in a right to defend themselves. I think everyone should have the right to defend themselves, but the conversation becomes more nuanced when they become mentally unstable because of huge amounts of hormones that they had in there. And then in some ways, I kind of understand the arguments. But he says, and this is, I think, the most important part here, can't wait for Gavin Newsom to use this precedent to bar all MAGA from owning guns on the grounds that they are mentally ill. Listen, that's where we're going with this. Because once we start restricting, and again, I understand the nuance point. Yeah, they are kind of crazy here. But we have to understand here, this will be flipped back against us as soon as someone in the left gets into power. And it's like, oh yeah, you could trample on the Constitution this way. You could trample on the Second Amendment this way. Listen, there's a lot of fake news and fake disinformation. There's a lot of fake reports out there saying, white guys are the absolute evilest people. They're the ones committing all the violence. Meanwhile, they had to literally add self-harm incidences in order to make white guys look like they're committing more gun crimes than they actually are. But they were committing it against themselves, which they still counted in all these fake datas and all these fake reports that are just being gaslit and literally made up out of thin air. Evil white guys. And again, you see the portrayal. You see Apple TV just released a new series. Those evil white guys. Whoa, evil right-wing white guys. And we saw this ever since the Bush years. The Bush years, we saw a big push by the Pentagon, the DOJ. During the Bush years, early 2000s, right-wing patriots, people who believe in the Constitution, people who believe in the Second Amendment, they're dangerous extremists. And I'm like, wait, what? These are the people who love and respect the Constitution. Now, Gun Owners of America, gunowners.org, released this article, published January 10th, 2025, saying Pam Bondi's Second Amendment problem, as they reported that the next Attorney General will oversee both the ATF and the FBI, which have notoriously and viciously cracked down on your God-given rights. Unfortunately, there are growing concerns among many gun owners that President Trump's nomination of Pam Bondi has a mixed record on the Second Amendment. She does. She was one of the biggest proponents and pushers of red flag laws here. And I disagree with that, as of course there's a lot of restrictions here in Florida, specifically when it comes to binary triggers, when it comes to other kind of accessories that are banned in Florida and not banned anywhere else. Now, Pam Bondi upheld and fought against open carry here. Now, we got to understand here, Donald Trump also isn't the best on this, as he previously, during his first year as president, during his first term as president of the United States in 2018, literally talked about, yeah, we gotta take the guns first, due process later.
President Trump stunned lawmakers on both sides of the aisle Wednesday with his overarching demands for gun control.
Like, take the firearms first and then go to court.
After Vice President Mike Pence suggested court procedures for removing guns from dangerous people, Trump caught him and many in the room off guard by seeming to dismiss due process.
I like taking the guns early, so you could do exactly what you're saying, but take the guns first, go through due process second.
No, can we have due process? Can we have a little bit of due process? Now again, Trump did pass away the bump stock ban. Trump isn't as good on the Second Amendment as a lot of people think he is here. But now, senior DOJ officials toting this around, testing this around. This is the test, right? And if enough people say, yes, ban it, yes, immediately, let's do it, they're going to be, of course, doing it. Michael Knowles came out, as some people are saying, hey, our rights shouldn't be infringed. As Michael Knowles responded, should babies be allowed to own guns? Felon, the mentally ill? And again, there's an argument to be made, especially amongst the mentally ill here. All right? But overall, I think we are better off as a country, as a people, with more rights, not less rights, not more restrictions. Now, some would say these restrictions make absolutely sense. Again, there's a specific industry here that's profiting off of and enriching themselves off of creating these kind of liabilities for us all. I say if we're going to be taking any kind of executive action, that would be the first step you kind of go after, not to restrict a whole group of people, right? Just like that car analogy. Someone's driving drunk, you can't drive your car anymore because you can't be held responsible. Well, okay. Well, that's a weird argument, and I feel that's in line here. Now, again, let's get a little bit more nuanced here, right? Let's keep this argument going here, right? It's these trans people that need to have their guns taken away here. Listen. There's even like Fox News anchors talking about we got to disarm young white males, and there's so much disinformation and propaganda against white males. But let's look at the gun homicide rates specifically compared to whites. This is CDC statistics from 2022. By the way, these data points are cooked anyway. So first it's trans people. Next is going to be young black males. Right? If we're going to be arguing, hey, we gotta restrict this because these people are a liability, right? Will they take it there? Will the right take it there? Say, listen, you're young and black, you can't own a gun. A lot of this is ridiculous because again, a lot of young black males get their firearms illegally in gun-free zones, in like Chicago. All right, let's just be honest with ourselves. Now, when you look at the statistics are cooked anyway because they're manipulated, and a lot of black people are just being categorized as white, by the way. That happens a lot, too. But young black males and firearm homicides, big disparity there. Again, look, CDC, black males ages 16 to 55 only make up 5% of the population, but are responsible for around 50% of all violent crimes in the country. Saying that they can't legally own firearms, is that going to solve the problem? No, because they're just going to get it, and they are getting it, illegally off the streets. Is this restriction going to do anything? In my opinion, no. Is this a legitimate conversation to have here? Yes, but it should be with the medical professionals that are enabling, profiting, promoting, and pushing a lot of this and making a sweet dime off of it. That's where the conversation should be. And I agree with some of the right-wing criticisms here, but I mostly have to say that this is, in my opinion, a major overstep of power, a major violation of the Second Amendment, and something that I personally would not want to see because the benefits outweigh the negatives. Sorry, the negatives outweigh the benefits. Pardon me. It's pretty clear here. As a country, we're better off with more rights, more liberties, no matter what the consequences of those may be. You want to deal with this problem? You deal with the medical professionals profiting off of it, and you stop it from its start. You don't put a Band-Aid on top of a problem that also restricts a whole bunch of other people that, of course, the left will now be using as another way to restrict your rights and your privacies. If you think I'm wrong in any way, shape, or form, let me know. Thank you so much for checking out our store, getting yourself some fish oils. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you guys getting the fish oils, supporting this independent media broadcast, and this is why I love you guys. Stay tuned for more. All here exclusively on youtube.com/We Are Changed. Beautiful and amazing human beings.